With that, ladies and gentlemen, looks like we're all set to march ahead to our next segment of the program as well. Now, having witnessed the rapid growth of India's online gaming industry and the value that it adds to India's growth story, leading consulting firm PwC is joining us to launch their independent report on the market overview of India's online gaming industry and the projections on its growth potential coupled with the opportunities and challenges that need to be addressed. Now, this is going to be a very interesting set of insights coming your way. So to do so and to share these insights, I'd like to please invite on stage Manpreet Singh Ahuja, Partner and Chief Digital Officer, PwC. So can we have an insightful round of applause, everyone? Please help me welcome Manpreet Singh Ahuja.
Very good morning. So, gaming makes you think of passion, makes you think of energy, makes you think of connect, makes you think of a lot of excitement. And I'm deeply excited to be in a room full of people who are the architects behind all of that. But I must confess, you guys are a much more serious bunch than the community that you cater to. We all know, and I'm sure as business leaders, you all know the sector's been bursting all the charts as far as numbers are concerned. But I want to start off this conversation by asking a question. Would anybody take a shot in terms of how many games did the Indian users download in 2023? Because we all know the numbers, we all know the growths, but when you hear that number, you begin to start realizing how much potential this country has as far as gaming is concerned. It's 9.6 billion games that got downloaded in 2023. So, let's talk about some numbers and get them off the way. The global gaming revenues today are about $340 billion. And they're growing at a CAGR of 8%. So we all know there are headwinds in the global market. We all know industries are getting sluggish. We all know economies aren't doing well. So 8% CAGR on a $300 billion base is definitely encouraging. And this $340 billion is expected to cross close to about $500 billion by about 2028. So that's the global sector. But what blows me away from an opportunity is that APAC, out of that $500 billion, gives us close to about 48% of these revenues. And that's the market we are in. So 48% of the global gaming revenues are coming out of APAC, and India's got a right to play big in that market. Let's pick up some of the Indian data. We've got close to about 45 crore gamers in the country, second only to China. And by 2028, we expect to cross that as well. We are expected to get to close to about 72 or 73 crore gamers as we get to that time. And, a lot of people come back and think, yeah, India's got volumes, but who's got the affordability? Like most businesses, like most, investors would go back and say, oh, can the Indian economy afford an iPhone? Right? Those are the usual questions that begin to start coming in. But feel very happy and proud that because of the digital infrastructure the government set up, the micro transactions that keep happening, already give us close to about 1,600 rupees of ARPU in the sector. And this, with the economy growing up, will keep growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So today, the Indian gaming industry is close to 33,000 crores. And as against the global CAGR of 8%, we are growing 14.5%. And what that means is this 33,000 crores will actually double by 2028. And this is the sector, this is the industry, this is the veterans. You're the innovators, you're the architects, you're the developers, you're the businessmen who are going to ride on this growth and shape the future of this sector. So great opportunity, great time to be in this space. Now the darling of this sector has been the RMG. Now a quick question back for everyone, and I'm sure a lot of you will have a sense on this, is, globally, how do we stack up as far as RMG is concerned? Who do we look up to? Who's the number one in the world on RMG? It is India already at this point in time. With whatever challenges the sector sort of gone through, we still are the number one in RMG around the world. And the 16,000 crores that this sector has made will grow to about 26,000 crores in 2028. This RMG space was growing at 25% CAGR, 25% CAGR. bigger and faster than our stock market. But of course, the GST issues that sort of came through and some of the regulatory issues has slowed that growth down. And today we are sort of moving at about 10%. But I'm sure if the government and the industry were to get their act together, hopefully we'll be back to the growth numbers that we're looking at. But irrespective, that 16,000 crores has to get to 26,000 crores in 2028. Bulk of the investments in the sector have come to the RMG space. And the money that flows into RMG actually then goes back into the wider ecosystem, goes into gaming studios, fuels the casual social gaming as well. So, it's been the big brother that sort of has helped the overall gaming industry to kind of start scaling up and making India a little more relevant in this entire game. Now, social and casual gaming at this point in time is growing at a CAGR of 21%. 21% CAGR. And what that means is that, the 10 to 14,000 crores that gets made today out of the social casual gaming is going to snowball into about 36,000 crores, even bigger than RMG. And that's a massive opportunity. And that's an area where there's a whole bunch of innovation and new creation and new IPs are expected to get put through. So, those are just some of the headline numbers. 23,000 crores is the investment that has moved into the sector in the last 5 years from global investors and local investors. 23,000 crores. And the government's beginning to sort of realize that, recognize that. The world is beginning to realize that. But it's a massive inflow that's already begun happening. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that needs to happen. This sector, we are saying there aren't regulatory clarities. This sector has contributed 90,000 crores of cumulative GST and TDS back to the government for the society, in this 4 to 5 year period. FY25 to 29, we expect that's the amount of money that this sector will feed back to the government, 90,000 crores. And an additional 2 to 3 lakh direct and indirect jobs will get created by this sector. So I think it's very, very important that this sector comes together and showcases this back to the government, regulators, investors to seek what is needed for this sector to kind of grow and make India the $1 trillion digital economy ambition that we have. And despite all the constraints, you still continue to beat the charts. So we're very hopeful that, with the concerted effort and the numbers that are coming together, the sector will only do better and better from this point onwards. Now, it's a no-brainer as to why India is in the thick of things on the gaming side of the house. We are a young population. The average age is very, very low. The mobile smartphone penetration is very, very high. I mean, Sandhya spoke about the numbers. Our access to mobile data is very, very cheap. On an average, we're consuming close to about 24 GB worth of data, and that's growing at about 22%. Last year, the growth in that data consumption was 22%. So all these things come into play absolutely to make sure that the growth that we're seeing is not a one-off, is not because of COVID there is growth. It's the inherent macros in the country, macros and micros in the country that is giving growth to this sector. And then, of course, the whole startup ecosystem that's sort of coming into play, that's fueling more and more activity. We've had 3 unicorns in the sector over the last, couple of years. 1,400 startups at this point in time in the sector, 1,400 startups. And it's not just gaming for gaming. These gaming companies are beginning to be looked at by large enterprises because they've got to transform their businesses and learn new ways of engaging with consumers that this industry understands very well. So it's gaming for enterprise as well, which is going to be a big opportunity, which is not really the numbers we're talking about right now, which is not a reason why investors pour money into gaming right now. But all that will begin to happen as that sector matures, as more and more AI and blockchain begins to start coming into this area. You will see a lot more enterprises wanting to leverage this to engage consumers and customers differently and disrupt the way business gets done. And of course, there are 500 plus gaming studios already in play, and a lot more will come to the table. And all of that will lead to esports and some of the other activity, which is where, it's a fast CAGR, but it's still a very, very small sector at this point in time. India hasn't even started exploiting that. But even that will end up becoming a very, very fast growing business opportunity and a space and almost an extension to all of your businesses that you're in at this point in time. But again, a call to action. Like I said, the $340 billion will get to $500 billion. I celebrated the 48% of this revenue that's coming from APAC will actually sort of keep inching up. That share of business from APAC will go to about 54%. But what is India's claim of that revenue is the hard question that I want to ask. And what can we as the room together do to be able to have a disproportionate share of pie out of that ecosystem? India gets about 1.8% of the global gaming revenues today. So it's very, very small. And we clearly have a runway ahead to be able to make that 1% get into double digit, and a significant double digit, because we are a great developer ecosystem, we are an innovation hub, and we've got a large consumption economy, and we've got a large, gaming ecosystem already in play for revenues to start coming in. But for that to happen, the industry has to do a bunch of things together. And of course, there's a big ask from the regulator as well. But first things first, let's control what we can control. So as a gaming ecosystem, what will we do in terms of making the investments and building an ambition to have our own IPs? We've got to be a net exporter than being a net importer at this point in time. And that will create more revenues, absolutely. And I'm sure the government needs to figure out a way of creating that incentivization as well for those IPs to get built, because there's going to be money and research dollars that will be going into this. We will need to move ahead as an industry to invest in blockchain in gaming. We're all talking about it. We all talk about that in the road, outlook and roadmaps in the investor meetings, but we aren't really investing as much on the blockchain side of the house. We're all invested in AI, but how do we begin to be cutting edge, market first in the AI, embedding AI in the entire value chain of gaming is extremely important for more and more investor dollars to start coming into the country. And like I said, gaming for enterprise will also look at some of those capabilities in the way we operate. Gaming as a service is lucrative, sounds exciting, but again, has not been exploited to the scale. It's a big opportunity on the table that we've got to solve for. Responsible gaming is going to be we all keep talking about it. I know it's important, but it's almost a bedrock of the crazy growth we expect to achieve in the sector. For the regulator to trust us and to create greater enablement, we'll have to play as an industry a deeper role in self-regulating ourselves by embracing some of those industry standards and best practices by driving responsible gaming in the way gaming industry operates. Super critical. And I think, as I spoke about building IP, we've got to leverage our own culture and create a significant localization for people, for gamers, to feel the sense of ownership of that game and content. It's a big opportunity out there. We have to look beyond Japan and Korea and some of the other markets and just translating those games into the Indian gamer. We've got to localize and leverage our folklores and our culture and be able to create the content that is sort of, a part of the ecosystem and family ethos within which we are kind of growing up. And to be honest, with the Indian diaspora spread all around the world, it'll be a big opportunity for that to be export revenues back to the country as well. And last but not the least, as I said, the self-regulation is going to be critical. That's possibly the most efficient, effective way for the industry to solve some of the concerns around responsible gaming that the regulator in the market sort of begins to, or the investors begin to worry about. Now, the asks from the government, and I think we should be fairly unanimous in terms of coming together and putting our asks to the sector from the government, is first and foremost, we need a two-tiered regulatory system for online gaming. And when I say online gaming, the entire value chain of gaming. I may be an intermediary, I may be a platform, I may be a developer. We need an industry body that owns that entire ecosystem together. We can't be sort of running around in the whims and fancies of different parts of the government ecosystem to be able to take a call and create uncertainty on the sector. So that's very, very important. And of course, as I said, the self-regulatory aspect, working back with that central nodal body, is what will create the confidence of investors and create dependability of the sector in terms of growth. Now, Of course, by METI sort of getting involved, it was a monumental achievement, something that the sector celebrated, created a lot more confidence. But I still think there needs to be an empowered commission of, senior officers, judicial members, who will be the single nodal body that kind of becomes responsible for dealing with the issues on the sector and creating that confidence of going to, the one commission, hopefully, that will create clarity for the sector. With the intent really of that commission coming together to promote the growth of legitimate online gaming industry. Important. Responsible gaming, super important. Getting the industry standards established and making sure the self-regulatory body mechanism is working well, supremely important. Getting government influenced on making the investments that are needed for the talent pool to get built up in the AVGC ecosystem. I mean, if we are 1.8% of the global gaming opportunity and we want to get to about 20, 24, 25, 26%, where is the talent? How will we build the IP? So there's a big role that's going to be required in terms of influencing, creating awareness, influencing academia, creating curriculums, and getting people to aspirationally choose this career path. I mean, how many families around, our ecosystem sort of go back and say, "Haan, mera beta gamer banega." It's still a taboo. But we've got to get to solve that taboo and put that chip on the shoulder. And that's going to take a fair amount of effort from the government as much as it will be required from the industry itself. And again, as I said, the whole, it's easier said than done to go back and say, let's bring blockchain into the ecosystem. Let's bring in AI into gaming. Where are the GPUs? I mean, who's going to make those investments? So government will need to be able to create a fund that will be accessible by this ecosystem to be able to create the disruption, leverage that, and create a difference for the country. And last but not the least, goes absolutely without saying, the whole issue around the GST, the retrospective implementation, and then the whole litigation environment has been very, very dampening. And that's clearly one area where an announcement by the government and the body will be much needed and much appreciated. So those are, some of the bits that sort of come to mind when one looks at the gaming industry. But as I said, this industry has been very, very resilient despite the GST challenges. I remember we had a new media gaming event about, last year, about 15 months back, and the whole GST issue was like the whole sector will be dead. Who will invest money in this sector? Why will anybody be in this business? But we've been very, very resilient as a sector. We've clearly, continued to drive growth and making the government realize that this is an important sector that needs more attention and needs more nurturing. So very, very bullish about the sector, very, very bullish about what you're doing, and look forward to the sector thriving and growing and making, as I said, India a $1 trillion digital economy with the support of the sector. Thank you so much.